Welcome in, everybody, to Fantasy Pros. This is the Fantasy Baseball Podcast. It's me, Joey P. Joe Pizzapia. With me is my co-host for baseball, The Welsh. And today, our special guest is the one, the only Paul Sporer. That's right. He's the host of The Sleeper and the Bust over at Fangraphs. You can check him out on Twitch. You can also check out all of his incredible pitcher profiles in the new Fantasy Baseball Black Book 2022. That's up on Amazon and on Apple as well. Black, that's right. And we got a very exciting show for you today. And I know some of you are bummed because Major League Baseball is dragging its feet in yet another union dispute, another labor dispute going on. The lockout is dragging on now into March, and who knows when baseball will come back. But we're going to talk about that from some different angles because that might actually help some players, some teams, and maybe hurt some others. So we're going to tell you which ones those might be. And we're also going to tell you who's the next. That's right. Who's the next Robbie Ray? Who's the next breakout hitter? A lot of those things, we're going to have some candidates for it on the show today. But before we get going, I'll remind everybody about the tools over fantasypros.com/draftwizard. Right now, we've got that cheat sheet creator that's out there. It's a great tool that allows you to combine all of your favorite experts. And by favorite, I mean the Welsh and Paul Sporer, not me. I am not your favorite. It's those guys. And with our expert sync feature. Oh, thanks, Paul.
And my ranks are up there now, too. I just point out my ranks are
well, then now you can use Welsh's. So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
So with the expert sync feature, your cheat sheets will automatically update whenever your chosen experts, the Welsh, update theirs. And basically, it's like having them in there in the draft with you. And not only does that cheat sheet work in both the draft simulator, but it also works in the draft assistant tools, which links up to your draft, which is also part of the Draft Wizard app, which is an amazing feature. It tells you when guys are going to get taken, what the percentage of guys getting make it back to you potentially that you might have in your queue. It is an incredible tool that can really help you in your drafts all February, March, April, however many months it's going to take for us to get
June.
Baseball. May, June, who knows? Well, but again, that cheat sheet creator is over at fantasypros.com/draftwizard. And also, our Discord channel is up live right now. You can start asking us questions about your drafts. Maybe you got some trades going on already, some crazy stuff. You can join for free at fantasypros.com/chat. And of course, you can upgrade and get dozens of extra channels over on Discord, including our AMAs and our stages where you get to ask us questions. Now, Welsh, finally, after, 8 years of being friends and working together for,
close to
6.5, close to 10, right? We finally got to be in a room together, drinking whiskey last week in Arizona. It was glorious. You know, sometimes you meet people and you're like, this person's different than I imagined in person. Nope, completely the same. And Paul, you know what we almost did? We almost just held up our phones and Zoomed across the table from each other just because that's how we're used to seeing each other.
Yeah, because it was weird being right there and you could reach out and touch him. But no, I agree. Welsh, meeting you in person, not putting on airs on his shows. He's exactly who you get. So if you like him on the show, you're going to love him in person because we've hung out many a time and I love it.
Or the inverse. Yeah, or the inverse.
I mean, if you don't like him on the show, then you're not going to like him in person.
Definitely not going to like me in person.
And that's
that was fun.
And I'm sure people feel that way about me too. There's plenty of people that do not like me.
Well, I think that's us. Right. I think that's kind of our MO, right? Like we're kind of the unlikable rebels of fantasy baseball where we have different ideas and we kind of break away from the norm. But Welsh, I knew you were much taller than me. I already knew that going in, so there was no surprise there. But I got to say, man, it was really nice to finally connect with you in person after all these years. Have a couple fine whiskeys with you and hang out. Plus, you got to meet my even more Italian cousin, which I'm sure was a trip. And we all went to breakfast the next day, too.
I'm telling you, we could do our own podcast on the conversations that were had on that entire dinner and breakfast with I was just surrounded by Italian. It was an intense in a very good way, but
were you guys
it was a good time.
Italian food as well?
No, we didn't. Okay. We had pancakes the next day, which, by the way, I do want to point out, there's been a very heated discussion of pancakes versus waffles. Joe Pizzapia joined me in the pancake ordering. There were no waffles that were ordered. So I just want to point
waffles are way better. Pancakes are lazy waffles.
Nah, but see, my debate,
my
argument has always been if a waffle's done right, it's better, but waffles are hit or miss. Like they can be too crunchy and blow.
I think pancakes can be hit or miss though too. I don't think they are. Have Nick Pollock make you some pancakes and let's see how you enjoy those. Are you familiar with that psychopath's plan of attack with a pancake?
Doesn't he not eat it with syrup?
No, he likes runny pancakes.
Oh, what?
No.
First off,
liquid pancake?
If you're ever describing anything as runny, that's food.
Oh,
just leave the premises. Like runny eggs. That's so vile to me. But yeah, he likes them like a little undercooked or something. I don't know.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
so don't
say that they're poisoning.
Yeah, don't say that they're never wrong.
That's gross. You know what I feel special about?
Versions.
I feel very special. I have met all of you in person. Like I don't piece of it. If you and Sporer hung out and had time together,
many times.
Okay, yeah. So like times. This is amazing. Like it's not that common that all of these great, fantasy minds get to be together, but we've all actually been friends in person, just not all together IRL. At the same time. I don't want to be around Nick anymore, though, if that's the case with the runny pancakes.
I'm telling you. Everyone thinks he's such a nice guy and so great and all that and so smart, blah blah blah. Yeah, have fun with your snot pancakes, okay?
he's like, let me tell you about CSW and runny pancakes. Gross.
It's also more like the idea of him ordering it out. Like it's one thing if you do it in your own house, like that's your business. But if you're going out with somebody to breakfast,
don't finish them. And they're like, what do you mean? Yeah, like when you're cooking the pancakes, don't quite finish it.
Yeah. It takes 10 minutes. Just come back in 7 and pull them out.
Come back in 7 and
slop them on the plate.
Drain it onto the plate. I'll slurp it.
In a desperate attempt to change this conversation, Paul Sporer, how are you holding up in terms of non-breakfast related things with no baseball? I know it's March 8th that we're recording this, and we expected to have spring training and going hot and heavy right now. Not so much. How are you holding up through the crisis?
It's not great. I'm not particularly thrilled about it. I fell for the little bit of excitement last week or whatever, 2 weeks ago, whenever that was now. But I know there's been a little bit more excitement drummed up today, which is March 8th. If you're listening to this, not exactly when it comes out, or I don't know exactly when it's coming out. But I'm not getting in on that hype now. When a deal happens, it happens. I'll just kind of play wait and see. My livelihood is tied to it, right? We work in the, with the game and we need games to be playing. But I am fortunate that if they push this further and they're complete clowns about it, I've got Twitch. I've got MLB The Show still coming out. I got things that I can do that are baseball related. So some of my brethren who are entirely tied to games being played and writing about it, whether it's as a reporter for the on the field game or fantasy folks like us, I feel worst for them because there isn't necessarily a backup plan. And what happens if this pushes into June or July and maybe places stop paying and say, hey, we gotta shelve you for a little bit. So stuff like that really bums me out. We had it during the pandemic, but that was more of everyone was kind of feeling the pain together. We could kind of come together and say, hey, we're all in this together. We'll make it. But now it might be like just the baseball folks, right? Because we're having our own issue over here. And it's so sad. And there's no both sides. The players are in this too. If you're ever starting down that path, you've lost me. I'm not going to hear it because why should they have to give every single time? The owners are billionaires. Just because billionaire and millionaire rhyme doesn't mean they're close. They couldn't be further apart. And so I think it's all on the owners entirely.
All right. Welsh, do you get that same feeling too? Is it all on the owners for you?
I mean, the owners are the ones that have the stop. Like they have the hammer.
They did all.
We were in an auction,
right? Yeah, they did the lockout. They're the ones it's all on them.
Yeah. My only disagreement. It's not even a disagreement because I think I do sit a little bit on the side of like both parties are playing a game right now. Like maybe the end result
David versus Goliath. Would you have ever rooted for Goliath?
I'm not necessarily sure that it's like that. It might be more. Oh, it might be more like Batman versus Superman, and they're both screaming for Martha.
Though.
No, but here's the only thing I'm saying is at the end of the day, there is a result that I believe is tied to the owners needing to fix. But there's a game being played in this. The players are playing a game as well. I'm all ownership here. This is ownership, but the games, the players are also playing negotiating tactics. They're playing the same public tactics. Maybe of the necessity that they have to.
But it is, because they don't have the leverage, so they have to play whatever they have zero leverage.
They have leverage for their play. But again, I don't want this to sound like this is coming off like I'm anti-player.
I know it does.
You're such a Manfred, Welsh. I had no idea.
Trying to both sides it is a bad take. I'm sorry. I love you, man, but that's a garbage take that the players, they don't have anywhere near the same leverage. Their play is not leverage. The owners don't care. They're already canceling games. They don't care at all. They don't care about the game.
They don't care right now. They don't care right now. They're going to care in a couple weeks when the bill comes due from the television companies like Jason Hayward put out. But you know what, it's similar. I am 100% in that the crux of the villain here, the ultimate villain, is the owners. But like all stories, there's not one hero and there's not one villain. Sometimes everyone's playing similar roles. My only argument is
this is not one of those stories.
What's that?
This is not one of those stories. It's David versus Goliath. I'm sorry.
And again, maybe that is the case. My only thing is when the players start to play the games, that's where I'm like, listen, there's two sides doing this. At the end of the day, the owners, the players have to acquiesce to what the owners will allow, which is the problem here. The owners do hold the card. They own the hammer.
And that's why it's not a both sides thing. And I don't want to derail the entire pod on this, but like, that's why it's not a both sides.
You guys are doing a pretty good job of that. I just want to tell you.
Equal play here, because it's still all in they locked them out. They didn't come to the bargaining table for 6 weeks. Yes, the players are going to have some tactics. They have to try to get any ounce of leverage they can. Again, it's David versus Goliath. David got to get that rock and shoot it. So yeah, you can say that they're playing some games, but I don't have any objection to them using whatever that they can, because they have negative leverage at this point. So that's my last piece on it. I'll leave you with the last word.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't like that it's I don't think what I said is a garbage take at all. It's they're playing a game. 80% of this is on the ownership, but like not everybody, there's not rosy rainbow puppy dogs over here and in every side of everything, be it political, be it sports, be it anything, everybody is playing roles in it.
We'll save this for offline.
Yeah.
Text me what the players are doing that's problematic in any capacity.
I want to see that. I can't wait for those.
You're going.
I can't wait for those texts to leak into the public domain. By the way, Rosy Rainbow Unicorns is also my MLB The Show name. If anybody wants to play,
that might be my new Twitch channel.
We can do it publicly, but I'm just saying, like, let's move forward in this pod. Yeah. But text me what you think they're doing wrong.
No,
I'll hear you out, but I just don't 80-20.
You know, I don't think it's. And look, I actually am more on the player side than on the owner side. Without
as
doubt.
Am I.
The difficult thing, I think, is the perception of the MLB union is so powerful. All the money's guaranteed compared to the other sports. It's a very different structure where they have, I guess, comparatively speaking, so much more on their side than other players' unions and other sports by comparison.
It doesn't matter.
It is true.
Though.
It doesn't matter for this.
It doesn't
but
matter.
I'm just telling you about the perception. I think the perception is, hey, you've already got the best deal in.
Yeah.
Well, I think you've already got the best deal in sports. Why are you fighting over again for the lay person's perspective? It's nickels.
Why are the billionaires? Because you can just flip it right on its head. The billionaires have exponentially more money, and yet they're fighting for it. So everything you can say about the players, it's much worse that the owners are doing it, because billionaires. Watch Billionaire versus Millionaire Rice. Google that, and you find out the difference between the two. Again, just because they rhyme doesn't mean they're anywhere in the same stratosphere.
The close analogy I could give, because I agree, like, you got to take a stand, and that's why, like, I don't think there's a problem with all the things that are going on. I just don't look at this as like, well, that's the hero and that's the villain, and there's no bad is done here and all the bad is there. It's like, no, it's like a court case to me.
But then text me the bad that the players have done.
But let me just finish. But let me finish my.
I want to thank everybody for being here on the podcast today. It's been a fun show, and hopefully.
Well, let me just finish my last thing here.
Go ahead.
Let me just finish this last thing, and we can move on, because I don't want to talk about this either. It's ridiculous. You are black and white about this. I am not black and white about this. You are like, tell me the things that are wrong. I'm just saying, I look at this like a court case where you've got a plaintiff and you've got a defendant. Okay. And then in between there are scuzzy lawyers doing scuzzy lawyer things to make everybody uncomfortable and to win their side, whatever they have to do. And that's I'm only looking at, like, everyone's playing the games with tactics. And sometimes the plaintiffs look really gross or the defendants, either way, whichever type of case you're looking at. But everybody's playing this game that makes it all feel a little bit And it's like, do we have every little best interest in there That's all that I'm saying.
90%
ownership.
This is why I just want to tell everybody.
Okay.
This is why you should also be subscribing to our Fantasy Pros MLB channel, because during that last salvo from Welsh, Sporer actually took his glasses off and began polishing the glasses, and that is one of my favorite techniques of when you're listening to somebody and you're ready. It's very talk about Southern lawyer, getting ready to say. Well,
I do declare, Mr. Welsh.
Your Honor, I must say, Mr. Welsh does make a very convincing argument.
Does it please the court if I speak, Mr. Welsh? You had said that there are tactics going on.
Again, so it sounds bad, but I guess the only reason I took any of that stance was when you were just like, "Hey, listen, it's 100%. There's no," and it's just like I just don't necessarily.
But it is. That's fine. We can disagree,
and we can disagree, and we're still friends because,
well, no, we were never friends to start. Let's be honest.
But that, we can definitely have disagreements, even stark disagreements here. But I can't let you just go with the nebulous. I can't tell you what's wrong with them. I just know that they're doing something wrong. That's what I'm saying. You'd have to give me the things that they're possibly doing. But let's move forward.
Let's put a pin in it.
It's a great combo.
We'll put a pin in
I will keep it on text if you want to go.
And what we'll do is we'll have Fantasy Pros After Dark, where we really get to let everybody just fight this out and use all the language they want.
Use all the
words. A few Red Bulls, you pop a few whiskeys, and it's all.
And look, right now everyone's a loser, as Paul is talking about.
That's the big
lockout.
We all
right now. Everyone's a loser, but let's talk about maybe some lockout winners. Let's transition. See what I did there? Look at this. What a beautiful transition I just made.
But a real pro doesn't even address their segue. They just ride on.
No. I want everybody constantly aware. I am just incredibly needy, and I need everyone's approval at all times. Love me, like me, shower me with kisses. Just like that old character on Seinfeld. I love that guy.
Sounds like me.
John Polito, who played who's like the super of the building. I love that guy. Anyway, so you got your Seinfeld reference in as well. So let's talk about lockout winners. So obviously, because the season's getting pushed back, we're still gonna have a month. Whenever they do come up with an agreement, we're gonna have a month before we get to the actual baseball being played anyway, which I think is actually smart because I want everybody to be healthy and get to the season in one piece. So Welsh, who is a winner because of the lockout right now from a fantasy standpoint?
I think probably the number one that we've all gone to, and it's a first round pick, and it's a guy that maybe at one point was even floating outside of the first round in the early stages due to injury. And as time has gone on, he's ticked up. And then when we started to realize, hey, we might actually miss some games, we can go and just completely maybe wash our brains of the injury that Ronald Acuna is coming back from. Because, I think all the fun videos that are out there of him swinging and looking healthy, that's great. But we've all gone down that road before in fantasy where you ever play fantasy basketball, it's like, hey, Kawhi Leonard, he'll be out there. He's good. Take him number one overall, and then he's out for 2 months or whatever. So I think that's floated around with us. It's really fun to see him out doing BP, but he's coming back from a serious injury that probably was going to take at least a month, legitimately a month away, but was still getting him first round buzz. Now that you have the ideal spot where you're going to have a week on, maybe another week, and then they'll just back end it. Ronald Acuna missing maybe a week, maybe not missing nothing at all, but maybe missing a handful of weeks at most, has moved him from what I think has been more of a back end of the first round, even though in some like Roto or NFBCs, I've seen him go like at 10 and even a little bit higher. He's now firmly in that top 6 or top 5 with those missed games. And I think he is just the clear beneficiary of any player we could pick on this entire list. And I know, Paul, you're going to at least agree with me on that one.
Yeah. Well, that is the number one for sure.
Let me follow that up. Let's say the season starts May 1st. Let's just throw out a date there. Would you take Ronald Acuna as a top 3 player, Welsh?
Yeah. I would say, I was about to say, if you were going to say number 1 overall, I'd say no, but top 3, I'm very comfortable with it. It's kind of a mush of players in that, of very good mush, by the way, where you got like Turner and Tatis and Jose Ramirez. I had the 3rd pick in TGFBI, and I gave a real hard thought to Jose Ramirez, and I moved off of it and I went to Soto, but I know there's the Vlad guys out there, and Acuna goes right in that. And Acuna probably, if you want to delete any of your like injury concerns, yeah, it's a no-brainer top 3. If you're a little bit tenuous and you're like, ooh, first pick, am I going to really pass on Juan Soto for that? I would say move to top 5. But yeah, I think 3 is on the tip. If I was doing TGFBI right now, and right now, I think I would have taken Acuna 3 overall, and instead of Soto. I think I would have done that. Just take my shot, because that's a league where you just you kind of have to go all or nothing. You know, it's a little Ricky Bobby. If you're not first or last type of thing. I probably would have went with Acuna if I were doing it today.
All right, Sporer, who's a winner for you? Give me one of your winners from the lockout.
Well, this is on Welsh's list too, but he can't have all the goodies, so I had to go Justin Verlander as well. It's pretty obvious why. You know, he's coming back from TJ. He's already on the better cycle than a lot of guys, right? A lot of guys come back in that 14, 15-month window, and then kind of need to amp up and have ups and downs, kind of the way we saw Chris Sale last year when he returned. Well, JV already had his back in October, or no, what would that have been? Was it March of 20?
I believe you're right. I have to go double check. Welsh, can you double check on that while Paul expands upon Verlander?
Yeah, but either way,
because he didn't have it right away after it happened. There was a little bit of a wait.
Oh yeah,
the owner collateral on September 30th.
It was September 30th of 20. So I was going to say October of 20. I should have stuck with that. Anyway, it's been well over a year at this point. And yeah, because he did have that 6-inning start in 2020. He waited, he tried to figure it out, then had to go and get the TJ. He's going to be back. He's a unicorn to me, wherein you can't necessarily apply normal things to him. I'm not saying he's necessarily unquestionably going to come back, but I'm betting on Justin Verlander as though he's going to come back and be an absolute monster. Normally, I don't come back with TJ return guys, but the reason I'm more interested in JV is because of the extra time he's had to kind of figure things out. I also put some credence in Houston giving him $25 million with a $25 million player option for next year. So they're committing $50 million. Doesn't mean they're right. Teams have invested in guys who end up getting hurt before. That's not unheard of. But there has to be a measure of confidence there for them to do that with Verlander. And so that's why I'm pretty confident in him. I've been drafting him as though he's ready to go. I guarantee you, the second he steps on the spring training mound and starts throwing upper 90s BBs, he's skyrocketing up everybody else's board. I've just cut out that middleman, and I'm already drafting him there. I understand that people want to wait, but I've pushed him way up.
The consensus right now on Verlander on FantasyPros.com, where you can look at all the consensus ADPs from all the different sites. Right now, he's the 34th pitcher going off the board. He's going behind Blake Snell and Carlos Rodon. Now, personally, I would take Verlander already over those two guys. But then Trevor Rogers, Dylan Cease. Overall, he's at 106. But, Paul, would you take Verlander over Rogers of the Marlins, Trevor Rogers?
Trevor Rogers, I think, is directly behind him. I have them 20 and 21 respectively.
Okay. That's funny. Right. I have Rogers 2 spots behind Verlander and SP as well. I have Verlander over him. I have Verlander inside my top 100, and I think I've had it for quite a while. I didn't move him crazy because kind of like what Paul was saying, because I completely agree. You know, behind the table here, that was my number 2. That was my number 2 on this beneficiaries because of this. And that's
behind the table, like in the secret text message thread. Is that the same thing?
Yeah, and the curtain's what he meant, but I like behind the table.
A lot of stuff. The after show for this show is going to be amazing. I just want to say.
Yeah, please sit on this couch. I'm going to tell you can. The Verlander side, I've always been there with Paul, kind of since the beginning. So I've kind of priced that in. I've priced that bad boy in this entire time,
and we haven't had to draft him there. So if you were doing drafts in the winter, we weren't picking him 20th, but that's how we felt about him.
But my rank has been kind of representative of that. And yeah, I've got him inside the top 100. And I think you said Blake Snell as well. I actually got him 1 spot ahead of Blake. I just moved him ahead of Snell. You know, due to, I think he's going to get a majority of the time. And like Paul said, the minute he gets out there and throws, skyrocketing value. It's the same thing I've talked about with like Bobby Witt. You know, Bobby Witt's fun. I think he's not fun right now because we're not seeing anything. But the minute he gets out there and crushes a spring training home run, Bobby Witt is going to move back up into that like top 80, 75, and everyone will talk themselves back into it instead of him going like, you know, post 100.
All right. So you put Verlander on your list as well. So give me the third guy who's a winner, Welsh, for you on your lockout winners.
Yeah, the third one I've got is Shane McClanahan with Tampa Bay. So on a couple fronts, I went with McClanahan just as one of these guys that, you know, the Rays typically, and you could probably put this to any young pitcher. I think you could put Alek Manoah in there. You could put any of these guys that could have their innings limited or a team managing their innings throughout the season where they might push the guy, you know, maybe they skip a start. Every team does it different. Some shut down. Most, they're trying to move away from that. Most are trying to like skip starts so you can get them throughout the year. Those type of pitchers are going to benefit. And McClanahan is one I picked because I feel like he's a step above maybe the Manoahs and the Bazes and stuff like that, maybe as far as innings go. But now I think it can move from a management where I'm just hypothetically throwing out here. Maybe they didn't want him to go over 175 for this year. Well, now that is probably going to be a full workload of any of these guys. So I feel like Shane McClanahan bumps up just a couple more notches because I don't think there's any management that has to be done with him. But like I said, you could just take, super young 2-year range pitchers that could be facing any type of a workload management. And I would put those guys in there, but I just picked McClanahan.
It's funny because you look at the NFBC ADP on Fantasy Pros too. McClanahan's going at a 112 overall, Verlander at 106. So if they're both on the board, who would you rather take in a draft?
I actually have McClanahan higher. I got him just I got a couple notches higher. Actually, you know what? As far as an SP goes, he is 2 SP spots higher, but they're within the same 10 overall picks if you're looking at that. Okay, so, and who's in between them? Alek Manoah. I got Alek Manoah in between there.
Yeah.
I think it's something you might see me actually more application go Verlander with my team construction. Also spring training, as we get more clarity on what's going on with the season, you might see an adjustment. I could see Verlander for myself pop in, especially, hey, you get him out there, you see him healthy. Verlander's one of those few guys you have in this where you can get a guy in the 100 overall range that could be a top 5 overall pitcher. You can't take that away from Verlander regardless of his age at this point. Max is still doing it. So Verlander, I actually could see myself popping up, but McClanahan and Manoah specifically, those are 2 high strikeout guys on very good teams as well that I think, wins could benefit them. So I got McClanahan just a notch ahead.
All right, so you've got Ronald Acuna, Justin Verlander, and Shane McClanahan as your lockout winners. Paul, you also had Verlander. Give me 2 other beneficiaries of the lockout in your mind.
Well, I got Shane Baz, the other Shane there in Tampa Bay. And it's not that he's necessarily going to get a ton of innings. I think he's going to be on the Shane McClanahan plan if they had a full season. So kind of take what McClanahan did. However, if it's a shortened season, he'll play a larger percentage of the innings out there. So I think it does kind of help some of those young guys who could be facing some of the inning shortening there, to where if they don't have to do it as much and they can kind of manage it better, then they can play a higher percentage of the season's innings. And then the other one's just old dudes in general, right? So you can make the case for young dudes getting it because they won't be limited, but then old dudes just because break down, they get hurt.
Right.
And it's not that you can't get hurt. I remember there was a little bit of like, it's a 2-month season, I'll take every injured guy. Well, they can still get hurt. I understand the concept there, but you don't want to take it too far. And all I mean is that in the shortened season, it doesn't lower their chances to get hurt, but I'll be more inclined to take a gamble on a guy like that, because if he only has to make it through 4 months instead of 6, I might have a better chance at getting a full season from that guy. So that's why I put old dudes as my third.
I don't know what the ADP is for old dudes, but for Shane Baz, he is pitcher 39 overall. Zach Gallen is pitcher 37. Who would you rather have, Gallen or Baz?
I have Gallen substantially higher.
See, I do too. And I think it's kind of odd that they're that close. Welsh, did you think that ADP is a little off too?
Well, repeat it to me again.
Gallen is a 37th pitcher going off the board at 124, and Shane Baz is going at 128 overall consensus ADP, pitcher number 39. So the only guy in between them and a pitcher is Kershaw, but he doesn't have a landing spot yet. So
I'm looking at my own. The ADP actually of Baz is similar to where I have it, but I've got Gallen higher. I've got Gallen.
That's 3 for 3.
Yeah, so I've got Gallen as my pitcher, I believe 38 or 37, and Baz is a couple notches lower.
All right, Welsh, let's get to some of the losers then. Some people who the lockout could potentially hurt in terms of their value. Who do you see as being somebody that might fit that bill?
So the injury thing is really interesting one, because I don't know if I've come to terms with like what side benefits what. The old dudes. So like Paul was saying, the old dudes that there's less games for them to get hurt could be a benefit, especially specifically the older guys that have a little bit of injury proneness.
And the old guys where there's going to be a DH in the National League too. Let's not forget about that. That's a huge difference.
But you could also look at it the other way, where those same guys losing that percentage of the season is a bigger deal. So the guy that jumped out to me when I thought about this was not an old dude, but I think you got to just inherently look at the injury prone guys. And one of the most impactful injury prone guys that I played around with this on both sides of it, but I picked Adalberto Mondesi. Mondesi has just been a disaster as far as games played his entire career. He just has not got them in. He's now in a spot which could work in his benefit, where the team is just like, we we don't see him playing more than 100 games. We can't even find that commitment, which is good. I wonder when, push comes to shove, if they're actually going to follow that, if Nicky Lopez continues to go and wherever Bobby Witt is, when you get him out there, Mondesi could be a game changer. And that's what's weird about this is Mondesi can win you an entire month, but with how injury prone he is, and there's not a rhyme or reason when it happens, if he goes down with the stolen bases that are needed, that's bad. That's even worse than normal. If he can only get 100 games in 162, what if you end up getting 50 in the 100-game season? There's not time for him to come back on the back end of a year. And I don't know this for 100% fact. I'd have to go look, but I feel like typically his injuries have happened earlier on in seasons. So if that is going to be the case and he's going to miss those games, it's brutal. Now, he's unique in that he could play 30 games and he could probably still finish top 5 in stolen bases. Which
like he did in 20, last month. Like if he played most of that season, it was not a full season. It's not even.
He was a number 1 overall player in, I think it was August of that year,
September, because he was a disaster in August, and that was the thing. It wasn't even injury. It was utterly awful play from Mondesi, and then he had that amazing sprint there, pun intended, because he's obviously a speedster. So I think it's a good call. You see, I left my list blank. I struggled here with lockout losers outside of where you went with some of your guys. And I'm curious to see on your other two. So I'd rather just kind of go off of those, because best I could think was the injury prone dudes like Mondesi that you're talking about, because if they miss a big chunk, then there's no time for them to catch. So I could have put like Buxton there or Mondesi. These guys that have been chronically injured. That you have to be nervous about, just in general, but even more so if the season's shortened, because it cuts their potential time to get back. So that's why I didn't have names, but so I'm interested in your other two, especially your reasoning behind them.
Well, before we move on to the next names, Mondesi right now is going at 69 overall. Alex Bregman at 70. I mean, I don't know where you guys are. I'm well onto the Alex Bregman side of things, because I feel like if you draft Mondesi for that one thing, and I know that one thing is dwindling and it's hard to find stolen bases in roto, so you want to take that shot. I get it. But I'm looking at Alex Bregman as a guy who's had a superior career. I just can't wrap my mind around those guys going back to back. Can you, Paul?
No, and I'm much high. I'm very big on the Bregman breakout or Bregman rebound. If he's healthy, I think it's coming. Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. So Welsh, who else did you think really kind of fits this bill of people where the lockout might hurt them? We know Mondesi is one of them. Who else?
Yeah. So, I mean, I was really picking apart these. So the second one, people are not going to like, and it's probably going to be a big Tweety one for me this year, because he's going to come up a little bit later too. But I've also been kind of vocal about it. I picked O'Neal Cruz. Now, O'Neal Cruz, one of the top prospects with the Pittsburgh Pirates. He came up for a cup of coffee. He hit a couple bombs, looked really good there. Projection systems are wild with him. And I think I've talked about this in a couple different places. James Anderson and I actually specifically talked about it on one of my shows, Prospect One, where O'Neal Cruz is really interesting in, projection models. Most of them are just, atrocious in dealing with minor leagues. They can only give you so much and what they can project off of minor leagues. But then you've got O'Neal Cruz, who has like this little bit of cup of coffee that they can work off of. And it seems like off of that very short stint, projections really jumped at him, essentially giving him a 2020 season. But here's my thing with him. The Pirates are not competing, of course, but if you do have more expanded playoffs early on in years, everybody is kind of on a flat surface here. They're going to be competing in some capacity. I don't know if the Pirates really want to press. I think everybody's assuming O'Neal Cruz just has the job given. I'm not necessarily sure that's the case. Also, if early struggles, O'Neal Cruz has this ability. If you ever watch him, I don't know how many people ever actually watch him. He looks lackadaisical. He doesn't look like he's having fun when he's out there, and that it rubs people like a weird way. And I don't know how that's all gone. He can kind of get off into weird streaky modes as well. He's a big 6'7" shortstop that they're working him at right now. And my only take is of a short season, not having a whole lot of runway because he can't practice. He can't do anything. Getting him out there. What if he struggles? How long are they going to just let that sit around? The development of these young guys is very important, especially for the Pirates. Are they going to let him struggle at the major league level? I don't think he's at that place yet. They might also consider positional stuff. He could work out. He could be the savior of all fantasy teams when it's all said and done. But I look at a rookie with a very short sample size with very big hopes for fantasy owners because of projections off of a short stint that I don't know if he makes the opening day roster. I don't know if he can continue up if he struggles. And I think a lockout that takes him away from training with the team and coaches seeing him is not great for a young guy like practice. So that was my take on it. I think it's one most people won't like because everyone wants him to succeed because he's so late in drafts you can get in the projections. But I think this is one of those guys that could be negatively affected. Paul, I know.
Do you have the same feeling about Cruz?
Yeah, because I just had Eno on, and I know Eno loves him. We did it on ITL, but are you in the same space with this?
I'm kind of in between the two of you, where I feel like the hype might be getting a little bit too much. First off, we've got him penciled in on roster resource as the opening day starter, and I don't think that's anywhere close to a guarantee. And so we're just kind of having him come up and be ready. And I think that steamer number that came out, they released their projections first, 281, 21, and 14 really got the juices flowing for O'Neal Cruz for folks. And I think it might have set an unrealistic expectation. So, which has me hewing closer to you, Welsh, where it's like, hey, there's plenty of risk here. He had a week at AAA. Now, it was the sickest week ever. He hit 524, 655, 1286. 1286 was not the OPS. That was the slug because he had 5 homers. O'Neal Cruz, 29 plate appearances. But that's 6 games at AAA. I don't care how good it was. It's only 62 at actually, no way. He had 20 other games, 35 more games at AA back in 2019. So he's kind of figured out AA. But I'm not so sure that O'Neal Cruz doesn't need a little bit more seasoning at AAA. And I don't know that it'd be out of pocket if the Pirates said we'll give him a couple weeks there. And I'm more than willing to call out when teams are doing blatant service time manipulation. But I don't think that O'Neal Cruz is locked, loaded, unquestioned, ready to go the way like a Chris Bryant was, or the way even that I think like a Bobby Witt is. I think Bobby Witt, at the very least, if we didn't have these stupid rules, is deserving of a chance, right? When you play that well, even for 62 games, which is what he had at AAA last year, you get a call. But our game incentivizes not doing that, which is really silly.
Yeah, no, agree. That is very stupid.
And just like the Pirates, just as an organization as well, like they have so much banked into, this future class for them to make any missteps or, I see O'Neal Cruz as the starter the same way Camilo Doval is the closer in San Francisco. It's just not a guarantee. It's just not 100% guarantee.
Well, look, I think we're confusing the ideas of starter out of the gate and are they going to play the most games of that position this year, right? Probably at the end of the day, Cruz might play the most games for Pittsburgh at that position, but how many is he going to miss? And if the season's shorter, we're talking about percentages, that gets a little wonky there. I know you've got one more. I want to throw one at you guys too. I think the other potential losers here are the remaining free agents, because I think the remaining free agents are going to get there's some that are going to sign in a flurry and then some that aren't. And they're going to be late into some of these camps, very late, a couple weeks into whatever the spring training becomes. So for me, I want to throw those guys out there, especially those lower tier free agents, almost like the McCutchens and Phams of the world. Like those guys, I think are going to have a tough time finding spots right away. And if they're slow into spring training, again, some of these veterans, they need their at-bats. They're used to a certain routine. They're out of that routine. It's something to keep in mind as you're doing best ball drafts or you're drafting early. Just remember those guys who don't have homes right now. I mean, even to the pitchers to a certain extent, guys like Carlos Rodon, like I would, if he was in a spot, you knew where he was going to be, you knew what his throwing program was, maybe you feel a little bit more confident. But right now, I think those are guys that are definitely losers from the lockout. Welsh, give me one more before we start talking about some more exciting things than this.
Yeah, the only other one, it's kind of in the same respect. I've been very pro, this season is, and this was months ago, by the way, I was very pro, this is the year that all those rookies that disappointed you last year can rebound. I'm a buyer back into those guys because remember, you had these guys that popped up during the quarantine, boom, and Keith Brian Hayes, and they rocked it. Dylan Carlson's a little bit different. He's been kind of like median line. And then last year, disappointment. Bohm and Hayes specifically. Kelnick, the other one you got to throw in there. These are guys that had maybe the weirdest transition of time played. And also, this is a little bit of that maturation process of teams learning how to readjust these guys. That these are players I want to buy back in on because they're so cheap. They're all cheap based off of previous costs and really where the production can go. But now you take this away, you take more serious time needed away, specifically from Alec Bohm for me, and that one has me a little bit worried. I think Bohm is. I interviewed him a couple of years ago, and I've openly talked to how he's not a big analytical guy. He does some in the off season. He told me this was almost a direct quote. He said, I don't do analytics in season. I do that stuff all off season. He wasn't interested. Now, again, this was a couple years ago, but he's like, I'm not interested in making those adjustments in season. Okay, well, what analytics do you think a guy who's not into analytics has been doing in the off season? Of course, can change. You get under the wings of Bryce Harper and stuff like that. All of that can change. But I look at that and I go, man, this was a time for to be under the microscope. He's a contact-ish hitter with raw power who doesn't try to hit for power. Get back to that. Just hitting 280, 290. You're going to run into 25 plus homers. I really love the buyback on him, but I kind of think this is a worrisome spot for him to be away from all of this really, really needed maturation time for him as a prospect going into like year 2, even though it's like the 3rd season. So that's why I picked Alec Bohm.
All right, let's move on to the next group of questions here, because this is some fun and I want to have some fun here. We've talked about lockouts. We've talked about losers. There were a couple winners also, but
you want to go talk about who wins, the players or the owners again? You want to do? Let's do segment 2 of that. That was fun.
I mean, gonna rock 'em, sock 'em robots with the two of you guys. Honestly, I think it was a great discussion. I really do, because I think that you both brought up
just
some
gross
good
that
points
Paul
and
put me
point of
in.
view.
That was, I just want to point out, that was Paul's Muhammad Ali thing. He put me in the corner and boxed me, and he made me be like pro.
And then he
owner.
cleaned his glasses watching you squirm there. And now he's putting on chapstick as you're talking about the next thing.
Those were your words.
Even more unsettling.
By the way, before we get into this one, I feel like we should have changed the definition a little bit on this Robbie Ray one. It should have been a established veteran who had fallen off and went great. But you just went breakout pitcher. That's fine.
Well, you can do both. You could be an overachiever. Okay. No one said you have to set your sights so low.
That's all right.
I mean, considering you didn't bring any losers to the table, you might as well have us more than one.
Paul blaming the man again. Paul out here blaming the man again. Okay.
God,
what else is P&Z's fault?
I don't focus on losers. Sorry. I mean, I'm talking to a couple right now, but I don't focus on it.
All right. Well, let's get you to focus here. So we're going to ask some fun, loaded questions and help everybody kind of get some perspective for the 2022 baseball season. I can ask you the question, who is the next Robbie Ray, the next breakout pitcher? And if you want to define it as a veteran who takes the next step forward, that's fine. If you want to do both and overachieve, that's fine. So who is that guy for you? And if you have a veteran, please help our listening audience. They'd love to hear all the genius of Paul Sporer here.
I think like one of the obvious ones that a lot of people have been saying that kind of fits his mold a little bit better is like Andrew Heaney, like, a guy who's had some success, like fits of success. Crusty, way at the back of the ADP. If I told you he was a Cy Young winner right now, you'd laugh, which is what you would have done if I told you Robbie Ray was last year. So that's all I meant by that. But you made it breakout pitcher. So I'm going to go with my boy Patrick Sandoval. Now, I'm not particularly concerned by the injury from last year, because what I have learned about stress fractures via some chatter on Twitter with folks is that they're generally a young person's injury, and not one that is particularly concerning long term. So that the back injury that cost him time last year, limited him to 87 games, shouldn't be a major issue. When it says that he should be 100% by spring, that is what he should be. So we'll see. Obviously, I'll pivot if necessary. But on the talent, the breakout was there last year. It was really, really impressive. 15% swinging strike rate. He'd always had some good swinging strike rates in his first 2 samples, which were just under 40 innings apiece in 19 and 20. But the strikeouts hadn't quite been there. Jumped to 26% last year. Does need to rein in the homers a bit for sure. So does Robbie Ray, right? Even Robbie Ray last year had a little bit of a homer issue. So even that parallel kind of works. Also a lefty. But I really think Patrick Sandoval can have kind of the full breakout. I don't know if you guys are like me. Neither of you are AL West fans, so you don't have to worry about it conflicting with your team. But I root for the Angels to make the playoffs just to have Ohtani and Trout in the playoffs. So I stay pretty dialed in on their team just because I really want to will Ohtani and Trout into the playoffs. And Sandoval breaking out would be colossal for their pitching needs. Obviously, Thor would be a big part of that. Ohtani continuing to stay healthy. But I think Patrick Sandoval could be a major key in finally getting us those 2 guys to the playoffs.
Well, if they expand to 14 teams in the playoffs, let's expand to as ever many teams it takes to get Ohtani and Trout in the playoffs. I think that's pretty much what the bargaining situation is right now.
The way they've been building their staff, it might need to be 20 or 25.
But I'm with you. I think it's good for baseball when those guys are all in there. I mean, you want to see those guys on the big stage. the fact that Mike Trout's been in 3 playoff games in his career is just atrocious. It's just terrible. It's a bad job by the Angels, first and foremost. Let's blame the Angels because they deserve it for that. If you can't surround the best player in baseball with enough to get to the playoffs, that's a big problem. All right, Welsh, how about you? What's your answer to this question? Who's the next Robbie Ray?
Well, my guy probably also, like when Paul probably saw my guy, I didn't go that route, and I struggle with this one. I'd also say, like, I'm not pitcher guru like Paul would be, or really a lot of these guys. Well, also
I would say Nick Pollock, but now that I understand his pancake situation,
he's
runny pancake all credibility Pollock in the industry. All credibility's gone.
Yeah, no, Runny Pancake Pollock is no longer on this list whatsoever.
You're gonna call him Runny Pollock from now on.
Yeah, that. But
oh my God, I love
does have a good stat that I'm gonna use Pancake Pollock's one of his metrics here. I struggle with this one. I think I'm good at deciphering through pitchers and where we need to go, but breakouts is a whole nother ballgame.
This is a great breakout pick though. Like, okay, I think it would have been harder maybe to find like that crusty veteran type to like be the actual Robbie Ray, but with just being breakout, I think you nailed it. Because I probably would have picked.
I couldn't find a good crusty veteran that I wanted to pick.
Fine.
Guys that jumped to my brain, Marcus Stroman, but the K's aren't there. Sean Manaea.
And he didn't hit the depths of like those guys didn't hit the depths of Ray. Taijuan Walker's one that I would say. I can't quit Taijuan Walker. I love him.
There are a couple
I can't either. I think if Taijuan Walker could just, I think last year, what you saw in 2020, you saw the breakout, right? And you saw him do the same exact thing in the first half of last year. And I think in the second half, he just wore down. Just watching him pitch as much as I did, I didn't think it was anything wrong with Taijuan Walker. I just think he just didn't have the stamina to continue to do it over 30 starts. And I think maybe that's another guy too. Maybe he's a winner from the lockout. That's another winner.
Yeah. There you go. So get to your breakout though. This is a great pick though. Don't sell yourself short. I really like this pick.
Yeah, I was just looking at some other guy like Blake Snell, but that didn't qualify. So the guy that I honed in on is someone that
no guys who won a Cy Young. That doesn't count.
I know it doesn't count. That's why I didn't pick him. But this is actually one of ironically the first player I ever met and spoke to in the Arizona Fall League when I started covering it, and he was a Boston Red Sox at that time. Michael Kopech is who I decided to go with. He was used obviously in like a multi-inning kind of a relief role, and the idea would be to restretch him out after he had some injury stuff. He's so fascinating to watch. I watched him through almost every level of the minor leagues where he struggled for 2 years. He looked just awkward, and it's always what I've preached too about like learning about pitchers in the minor leagues as they mature through, especially these big power guys. And then all of a sudden he went from not being able to throw a changeup in the minors and he was just throwing a freight fastball to just getting it all done. So get him into a starting role this year, I think could do a lot of wonders. And he kind of mirrors in my mind that Robbie Ray thing where, okay, what can we pick? What's the thing that we can pick that can make this guy elite? Get that home run rate down. Get it down to a big degree. He's top 15 in CSW last year. He had a 34.1. That's obviously a metric that you find over on Pitcher List. He was top 15 and top 40 in swinging strike percentage. And he mirrored, this is a really interesting one when I was just kind of going through. He mirrored Trevor Rogers in so many ways to me when I looked. Trevor Rogers had a 31-point CSW, 34.1 to Kopech. They both had 15.3 swinging strike percentages. But the big difference between those two, a 5.5 I think it was home run to fly ball rate. Yeah, a 5.5 and a 14.4 for Kopech. Huge home run rate differences. Rogers also more of a ground ball pitcher. So I look at Kopech and I go, get him in the starting rotation, get him 150 plus innings, just get that home run rate down. And this is a 12 plus K per 9 type of guy, elite strikeouts on a great team for wins, a solid bullpen. What if they kept Kimbrel and they had Liam Hendricks? This is a guy that goes 5 or 6 innings and he might have 15. He might have 15 wins and he might touch 200 plus strikeouts this year. And he's going well past the top 100.
Oh, look, I draft him everywhere. But I think with Kopech, I think he's also one of those young guys who thinks that in every situation he can just, go ahead and beat you with the fastball. And that's true in the lower levels of the minor leagues. When you get to the major leagues, I think that's less true. That's something you got to start to figure out a little bit more. So I think that's why the home run rate's a little on the higher side. You got to adjust a little bit. These hitters are a little smarter. They can hit 98, some of these guys. So
and that's what he's been learning to do. That they put him in that bullpen role because of the injury. He had just come in before the injury, learning to throw 2 different breaking balls, 2 different off-speed pitches to go with the fastball, 3 pitches off of Tommy John with the support. Michael Kopech, that's my guy.
All right, let's pick up the pace with some of these. I want to get a lot of these answers in from you guys. So who's the next Sal Perez, the guy who breaks out in terms of power and has a monster home run season? Who do you think fits that bill, Welsh?
This one, I I super struggle with this. I went with Eloy. Jimenez. Maybe this is cheap. Maybe this isn't a fun one.
You just wanted me to say Eloy Jimenez.
Eloy Jimenez. High contact guy with pure raw power. He just makes all the sense into me. He's never gotten that big push. And by the way, Eloy feels like he's played for like 12 years since 2019.
I know.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And in that time, and then, you know, he comes off of like short season and then he suffers through an injury all last year. I think people forget what a power hitter Eloy Jimenez is. He's a second round type of talent that I think you could get back. I think people are projecting, you know, 28 to 32. I think we could get 40 plus on a healthy Eloy Jimenez season. So I'll go my power breakout as Eloy.
For sure. All right. Who fits that bill for you here, Sporer, in the next breakout power bet?
Eloy is a really good pick, by the way, because, you know, Sal was an established guy and so he's kind of jumping to another level. I went a little deeper and I went with a catcher because I didn't have a perfect one here, but I really believe in Tyler Stephenson's power breakout potential. 6'4", 2 1/4, 65 scouted raw power on our player profile at Fangraphs, which tells me that it's in the bat. He just needs to kind of get some lift, kind of figure it out, come into his own. We see catchers take a little bit of time. To be honest, it might not even happen this year. He might kind of be more like last year, add a few homers type deal, and then bust through with like mid to high 20s the following year. I'm not predicting this, but as like a holy smokes, kind of like the way Sal did, I think Tyler Stephenson could hit 30, and he hit 10 last year. So that would be a pretty substantial boost. What I'm projecting him for is more in like the 18 to 22 range, which is still a pretty significant jump. But if you're talking about a guy who could really just rock it and at catcher as well, that's why I went with T-Step.
I like that. We always need more catchers who can hit. That's for damn sure. All right, who's the next Jared Kelenic, the prospect we're all super excited about that ends up disappointing us in redraft leagues? Who's that name this year, Paul Sporer?
This was a big struggle for me because Welsh took the best one here, a guy that we talked about earlier that he said, I'll be revisiting. And I didn't want to take Witt just to pick somebody because I don't believe it. And I didn't want to pick something I don't
believe that either. I'm with you.
I'm not really worried about him. And frankly, I wasn't worried about Kelenic, and so I was wrong on that. So maybe because we have confidence in Witt, maybe that's unfounded confidence. But either way, Grayson Rodriguez, awesome pitching prospect, number 2 prospect in the game, according to our guys, or 3 prospect in the game, according to our guys over at Fangraphs. Only has hit AA so far. Baltimore hasn't shown me that they can develop pitchers yet. When he comes up, everyone's going to be instantly excited. I don't even know if I'll put in a bid, depending. And it's nothing against it's the context.
No, I understand why.
And so that's why I'm just nervous. He'll be like a Fabapalooza guy, and I think he'll hurt.
I love Fabapalooza, but you're also making a great point there, Paul, which is the Orioles have struggled to develop pitching in the last 20 years.
And this is a new regime, so we'll see what
they
do. But that park is part of the problem. No regime can fix. I mean, I know they moved the fence back, but that
they've made adjustments, so we'll see how much.
But that's not going to completely change. So I'm pulling for him, but for this year only, Grayson Rodriguez, it's a stay away from me.
Cheap plug too. I just had Jeff Ponce from Baseball America on Prospect One just dropped. And he's a big Orioles guy. And we were talking actually about pitching and whatnot. And I had presented the best duo of minor league pitchers in baseball. And I gave Mariners with George Kirby and Matt Brash. I gave Grayson Rodriguez with DL Hall. And I gave 2 others. I'm forgetting who they were. And that pick was Grayson and DL Hall. And it's heavily done by Grayson Rodriguez, if anyone wants to check that out. But I agree. I just want to say I agree with Paul. I'm so disinterested in rookie pitchers. It's not even funny. Look at Alek Manoah and Logan Gilbert. I was a big Logan Gilbert guy last year. They were okay, but they don't live up to the hype. I hate rookie pitchers in redraft seasons. It's just my disinterest is so big. I can't even begin to tell you. And I kind of agree with Paul. Like maybe I'd put a bid in, but I'm not going to win it. Like people are going to go nuts. They're going to go crazy. Yeah. I'll put a little bit in, but these guys are limited on their innings for the most part. And it's not my cup of tea.
Ain't going to get any wins either. Unless they have like the shock team of the year somehow, ain't getting any dubs.
Who's the Kelenic for you this year in 22, Welsh?
I mean, I think you guys could all pick it. O'Neal Cruz. O'Neal Cruz would be my guy. If I pick him as one of the losers on here. So just copy and paste
your O'Neal Cruz. All right, let's move on to the next one here. All right, so who's the next Cedric Mullins, the guy who takes a huge jump forward year over year? Welsh, who's that guy for you?
I mean, this is another one that I hated because this is like the Robbie Ray one. I think this is hard to pick together. I settled on Ahmed Rosario with
this is a good
Guardians.
One too. You're
with
being
the Guardians.
Hard on yourself on your picks. These picks fit the molds.
I'm just happy that I said the
Paul's
Guardians.
trying to make nice with you after yelling at you and telling you your takes.
That was
the first part of the show.
Anyone's seen some of my arguments. That was one of the most tame ones. Welsh got nothing.
Yeah,
I've got so much more in the chamber.
I've been in crossfire where like I could take friendly fire on it, but it didn't happen, so that was good. I'm gonna go with Ahmed Rosario with the Guardians. One of the things that jumped out to me as I was just going through picking and choosing, like how do you really find these guys? This was interesting. From June to September of last season, Ahmed Rosario, not a big power guy, really not a much of anything guy at this point. One of those like cheap, I'll just get some cheap stolen bases, multi-position eligible though, shortstop and outfield, which is kind of fun with him. But from June to September, Rosario had the 6th most hits in baseball with 97. He had more hits than Trey Turner or Bo Bichette. He also played the 2nd least games of the top 10 in hits last season. Only Trey Turner played less games in the top 10 of all the hits from June to September. In that same time, this is what stood out when you're really, because I think we all did the same thing. When you see Cedric Mullins, you think, all right, I need a power, speed, kind of out of nowhere guy. Yes. Rosario in that same time, 7 homers and 8 stolen bases. This was under a 75-game period that he ended the season on when he was really questionable and kind of dicey where he would play. I think he's a table setter. I think he's a top of the order guy. He ended just hitting the crap out of the ball. He showed more power than he's ever shown before. He can steal bases. I don't think he's going to go 30-30, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that he's a 15-30 type of guy next year, like a little mini Starling Marte that you get in just the dirt round. So he's a great late stolen base option, and he's going to be my next Cedric Mullins biggest jump hitter.
And if you're familiar with how
jumper for you, Paul.
Real quick on Ahmed, if you're familiar with how Justin got there, you followed a lot of the things. A guy on a lower end team, Cleveland, better than Baltimore, but lower end, batting at the top of the order, who showed some things late that suggests that the opportunity is coming. So Rosario was an excellent pick.
I just want to point out that Paul just went to sleeper in the bus mode and called me Justin Mason.
No. I said,
I
was saying
Justin identified him last year.
Yeah, Justin was the Cedric
okay. I thought you just called me Justin Mason, and I was like, do I need to get a bikini?
You often get mistaken for each other in person.
I was saying you followed the similar method that he
gotcha.
laid out. Mine is Lane Thomas, who also kind of follows that method, a second half kind of guy. He went over to Washington, batted first for them. Bad team, should be given nothing but the chance. Looked really good in those 206 plate appearances with 7 homers and 4 steals, 270, 364, 489 slash line. I think he's going to lead off there. That lineup does not run very deep. It's not very good, but he's at the good part of it there at the top with Cesar Hernandez, Juan Soto, Josh Bell behind him, so that he should score plenty of runs. I don't know when he'll drive in because he's a leadoff hitter. And I mean, I think Mullins himself barely drove in anything, so I'm not worried about that. But I think he could be like a 20-20 type guy and be really interesting in Washington. So Lane Thomas, 26 years old, leadoff guy for them.
All right, who's the next Jake McGee, the closer who saves with 30, well, maybe 30's too much now with the shortened season, but a guy who comes out of nowhere, saves a bunch of games that you didn't expect. Go ahead, boys. Say it at the same time. 1, 2, 3. Say his name.
Dinelson Lamet.
Yep. We both had it. It was funny. Before the show, I had got to the sheet ahead of time, and I wrote this. And when I wrote it, of all the things I wrote, I was like, Paul is going to be irked with this one, because when he came on in this league with us, we both came to this conclusion of this guy together. Like, I kind of brought this up, and Paul's like, yes. And we completely agreed on this one, that Lamet is the total outside the box guy, but he's a guy that doesn't really have a home with this team. They don't want him in like a multi-inning. Really, I mean, maybe they do that, but they got a million of those type of guys.
Especially with
no, they don't. They don't. But they got a million of those type of guys. So what do you do with a guy that really can dominate early on as a starter? This is wild. I mean, most guys share something similar.
Well, you do what the Cardinals did with Alex Reyes. And
it's the same type of thing. This is obviously a guy like they would love to keep stretching out, but they've got so much depth they don't need to do it. So what do you do with a guy that's got big electric stuff? Also, first time through the order as a starter, a 1.4 ERA in a very short sample size last year. He had 23 strikeouts to 6 walks through the first time in the order. The second time through the order, almost a 7 ERA. I mean, that's all these pitchers go through something similar to that, but that is to a hyper degree. He can't go late. He's got injury prone problems through the roof. They don't have a closer. They got Pierce Johnson now. Maybe they go out there and get someone. Lamet, and I know, Paul, you're going to just completely agree with me here. Lamet is a guy. Why not go throw him in a high leverage situation when you got nobody else? Give him that spot. And also a guy, is going to go through, big money type of stuff. Put him in that. It makes all the sense in the world.
Yep, it really does. And I won't go too long because we're trying to save time and we totally agree. And I don't have much else to add. November 9th, I wrote my Padres roster review. Each of those included a hot take. Mine was Dinelson Lamet notches 25 saves. They simply don't have anybody else. Maybe they trade for Kimbrel. Maybe they go get Jansen. They've been throwing money around. Save that money. Put it elsewhere, and you have your closer right there. Like you talked about his third time through, his second time through isn't even as good, but he only needs one.
That was his second time through, by the way. I gave you that was the second time.
Yeah.
Through.
So that's
gross.
He doesn't have the pitches to get through. I never believed that 20 was the start of something big for him. It was awesome. It was fun to watch, but it was 69 innings, and they were very nice. But Dinelson Lamet, he should be their closer.
All right, Paul. Who is the next Christian Yelich or Cody Bellinger, that guy we think of as established and we like him, and he's just going to fall from grace potentially?
I feel really bad about this.
I almost picked your guy too.
I get my AFL guys, and I love them forever. Chris Heisey, what's up, dude? Sixth outfielder, dude. I loved him out there. That was the first AFL I went to, and I was like, yes, I love this guy. But I discovered a few guys out there, and I say discovered for me, not that I told the industry about Mookie Betts and Brian Dozier, but I didn't know them before I went down there, and then I learned of them. Austin Riley was somebody years ago. Jason Clinton and I have told the story a million times. We're sitting there having a combo. It's the opening night. Boom, rocket off the bat. It's one of those head snappers where everyone looks because the sound is different. And I know some people roll their eyes at that, but other people know exactly what you're talking about.
No, if you played ball, you know the difference.
Yeah.
There's definitely a difference.
And I've heard the difference 4 times. He went 2 for 4, but the other 2 were rockets as well. And was like, Austin Riley, keep that guy in mind. That was 2017. He didn't even make the majors until 19, and he wasn't even good until last year. And I love what he did, and I feel vindicated about being early on him. But I didn't see a ton of skill changes that say that this is now his level. I don't think he goes necessarily all the way back to 1920 when he was an 85 WRC plus guy. But I'm not super keen on him holding the 135 WRC plus. The 301, the 303 average is the biggest issue for me. I think he'll be a power guy, but I think we're going to see 25 and 80 with a 240 average is really possible. That's not my projection, but that is the fall off for Riley. That would be my concern. Now, both those guys had injuries.
Freeman doesn't come back too. That's another thing too to keep in mind.
Those counting categories.
When you have Freddie Freeman in a lineup, that's a whole different kind of lineup protection surrounding it, where a guy like Austin Riley can thrive. Now, when you're the guy, I assume
he'll have to be the guy
back in May, right? Yeah. Exactly. But all right, Welsh, how about for you? Is there a guy that kind of fits that bill in terms of a guy you think is highly regarded or you feel is established already that you think is going to have a drop off?
Let me say one tiny thing. Neither of us went injury because those are hard to predict. And I know that those basically were the reasons for Yelich and Bellinger. So we had
I don't know what Yelich's reason was last year because he kept saying how healthy he was.
Well, that's true. Fair.
Production wasn't healthy. Because normally I would agree with you about that. And I would say, well, I give Yelich a pass, but there's only so much you give him a pass because if you keep saying, no, I'm healthy, he's out there playing every day.
We'll take you at your word for it then. Why are you trash then? No, you're fair. You're fair. But go ahead, Welsh. This is another good pick of yours.
Yeah, I went with
because your picks are sick.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I went with Jazz Chisholm. I like Jazz, but I think he's just super, super volatile. Projections out there. He's another one of these 2020 guys. At the end of the day, everybody's chasing stolen bases, a couple positions. Also, you can maybe second and short on him. Jazz is a former Diamondback prospect. The only thing that's always irked me about Jazz, and it was back when he was with this team, he's a crazy pull heavy guy who is insanely streaky to the Javier Baez mold. And he's got really high K rates that he just doesn't have a cushion if he struggles. So I look at a guy like that is being drafted in the top 75 in a very prominent place, being drafted over guys like Javier Baez, being drafted over, in some cases, over guys like Corey Seager and Carlos Correa and stuff like that because of stolen bases. But it's not a good team. And it's a crazy, crazy volatile strikeout guy that if he gets in a bad swing of it, he's not rosterable. He's just not going to be rosterable if it gets in a really bad swing. Is it going to get there? Probably not. He's an electric dude. They're not going to do anything with him. But I'm worried that the cost of 2020 as far as homers and stolen bases go, are going to be a very detrimental batting average, and runs and RBI might be relatively low as well, just based on the team. So I think my pick here is going to be Jazz.
Yeah, Jazz Chisholm is a good pick here too, because you didn't even mention like one of the big takeaway stats about how he had the, what was it, like a 969 OPS in April, did a ton of his damage, but from May on, and he got hurt. So he started the first half of May on the IL, came back off the IL, and from that point forward, he was a 681 guy with 14 homers and 14 steals. And like you said, that paces out to 22, but with a 236 average. And he doesn't get on base enough to supplement the stolen bases with like walks. And that's why people worry about guys who don't take walks. If you ever wonder, like, what walks aren't magic, why do you care that much? When you're in a slump, getting on base, you can still get on base via the walk, you can steal, and you can score a run. If you can't get on base, you can't do a darn thing for a fantasy squad. So yeah,
get on base.
Jazz is a great pick.
Well, you can't steal first. That's what I always say.
And I know it's a cliche, but like it's so true. And he's a can't steal first kind of guy.
All right, last question here. This one's fun. Who's the next commissioner of baseball? Welsh, you got an answer for this one? Who do you want to see in that role? Because clearly none of us want to see Rob Manfred anymore.
Vince McMahon. I want to say Vince McMahon, because
that's a great one.
McMahon couldn't come up with any worse ideas than what Manfred and baseball does. Guess what? Vince has always got. He's always got guys in the ring, always working. They're always coming up with new innovative stuff. Maybe he's firing a whole bunch of them all the time, but whatever. Burn and churn. I'll take a steel cage center field match over expanded bases or a pitch clock anytime.
Well,
maybe they can do that.
Put himself on a roster. He's like, screw this. You don't want to play. I'm gonna somebody give me a bat. All right, how about you?
Vince McMahon would turn the pitch clock into a Royal Rumble clock, so that would be the bullpen guys running in.
That's right. Every 2 minutes, a new pitcher comes out.
That's exactly right.
Just never begin.
Pitching Rumble.
We can get Brian Wilson to come back, and a lot more characters from the ages past. We'll get like, random pitchers and hitters and things like that just showing
pitchers
up.
Pitchers are lighting the baseball on fire and throwing it in there.
Think about it. Baseball players, they have their entrance music too, just like wrestlers. Yeah. I think this is a really good answer. I like the Vince McMahon one. All right, Sporer, you got a fun one?
This one isn't as fun. It's actually could maybe happen. I don't know. I just put Brian Kenny, and I don't agree with every one of his ideas for the game. He's definitely had some takes that I'm like, I'm not as keen on that, but I like a lot of the way he thinks about the game. And I think he generally loves the game. So, that would make him a bad fit for the owners though. They hate the game. So they don't want anybody that loves the game. Yeah. I almost put Bob Costas. He might have aged out of it a little bit.
I thought about him too.
He wrote Fair Ball years ago, and I really liked that book. I read that book. I mean, again, it's probably like 20 plus years ago that he wrote it though. So I'm not sure. He might be a little bit too crusty. I mean, it's going to be an old dude no matter what. Not that Brian Kenny or Bob Costas are ancient, but yeah, I think somewhere in that realm would be nice. Maybe more of a fan advocate. Vince McMahon's actually that's a great thing. You crushed.
He could do it. He only sleeps 2 hours a day anyway. I thought you'd need somebody that has been a player and has been in ownership. I think that might be.
I almost put
Derek Jeter's not.
I almost put Jeter. I don't know if you guys were looking in the Google Doc when I was in there, and I typed.
I wasn't. Jeter was my.
I swear to God, and then I crossed it off and went Kenny.
That would be great. Wouldn't it be great too with Jeter stepping down for the Marlins for him to just start his own campaign to be commissioner? Like, don't even just like silently go out, but like start getting billboards, send out your gift baskets to people, do whatever you got to do, Jeter, and just
he's a guy who's worked both ends of it. He's a guy who's been the player. He's a guy who's been in the big market. He's a guy that's been in ownership now, and he's seen that end of it. And I think is a reasonable guy that I think everybody in baseball respects. And there's not a lot of those people necessarily that you could look at both sides of this coin and say, I'm sure ownership people respect Derek Jeter, and I'm pretty sure all the players do because they grew up watching him. I think that would be an interesting guy as well.
I actually think, and like I said, I almost wrote that one. I think that one does have. I know I should have. I think that one does have some real merit there. That I don't think it's going to happen like next year or anything. I can actually see that more like a decade down the road.
I would be all for it, man. I'm a Jeter fan. Even though I'm a Met fan, I'm a big Jeter fan. Paul Sporer, you can follow him on the Twitter machine @Sporer, and of course, watch him play video games on Twitch and listen to his amazing podcast with Justin Mason, not the Welsh, with Justin Mason. That's the co-host of the Sleeper in the Bust with him. And of course, make sure you look at all his amazing profiles over for the pitchers at the Fantasy Baseball Black Book 2022 over on Amazon, available right now. And read and support Paul's work. It's absolutely incredible. Paul, I'm so grateful you made the time for us today to come on the show. And of course, your work is always fantastic. Keep it up. And hopefully we'll get baseball sooner than later. You can follow The Welsh. It is at The Welsh on the Twitter machine. And also don't forget, we got more podcasts coming, got more mock drafts coming. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, Fantasy Pros MLB. Again, it's a different channel, Fantasy Pros MLB. Subscribe to that because Welsh and I are going to be doing leading off every single day. It's going to be out there. It's going to be Welsh on that show with me. Every now and then we'll get Bregman, maybe Pat Fitzmaurice. Who knows what kind of cast of characters will drop by. Vince McMahon. Anything's possible. And don't forget about that cheat sheet creator too, fantasypros.com/draftwizard. You pick your experts. It syncs with your league. It syncs with your draft simulator. It syncs with your draft assistant. It syncs with your soul and get you the best possible draft with the best possible rankings from the experts that you trust over at fantasypros.com/draftwizard. And don't forget to join us over on Discord for more amazing baseball talk and sports talk, betting, football. We got everything on Discord at fantasypros.com/chat. That'll do it for us. But the story of the game goes on. For Welsh and Paul Sporer, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.
Thanks for tuning in to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. Don't forget to check out our featured videos. And while you're at it, make sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Fantasy Pros, so you can get the latest news and updates to give you the edge you need in your fantasy league.